everyone. Welcome back to the Mentor Movement Podcast. I'm Kylie Montigney, and today I'm introducing you to Michaela Ternasky-Holland. She is a Peabody nominated and Emmy Award winning director who specializes in creating impactful stories using immersive and interactive technology. She's one of the first directors to create and premiere a short film utilizing OpenAI's Sora platform, which screened at the Tribeca Festival 2024. As a nominee for the Producer's Guide of America's Innovation Award, she's also a consultant, speaker, and thought leader who's been recognized as one of the 100 original voices of XR and listed as one of the Blue Loop's 50 immersive influencers. During this episode, we will discuss career origin stories, being open to opportunities, and self care. Welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you on today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, to kick it off, and for people to learn more about you, can you kind of take us back to the beginning of your journey and why you kind of got into the career stuff that you are now?
Sure. So I actually have a huge part of my career that isn't focused in emerging technology. It isn't focused in directing. It's actually more focused in dance and choreography. And so my origin story really starts when I decided to drop out of my college degree, which was journalism at UC Irvine, and pursue my dream to go on Disney Cruise Line and dance and perform. And during that time on Disney Cruise Line, I really experienced what it's like to be involved in an immersive experience. I really saw what it is for guests to come in, let them have agency, give them the best of the best guest service. And I saw lives get transformed and I saw memories get made. And I thought to myself, well, I want to be able to do this with journalism. And so when I went back to finish my degree, I started really focusing on how to make journalism feel immersive and interactive in the way that I did on Disney Cruise Line. And while I still was dancing and performing, I started really honing my storytelling skill set to think about how we create stories that are really engaging and impactful that are also digital. And so once I graduated from college, I found there was many things beyond just video and podcasting and traditional digital journalism. There were things like virtual reality and augmented reality and artificial intelligence. And that's really where I started to focus my efforts and my time and my energy. And that's how I received my first job out of college, working at Time Magazine, and moved to New York. And I've been working in these types of storytelling ever since.
Like, how did you kind of get your first job at Time Magazine? Was that kind of like part of UC Irvine's, thing jobs that you get during college, or how did that work?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I actually graduated from UC Irvine and I was working part-time at Disneyland as a dancer performer and also was working in Los Angeles as a production assistant and trying to break my way into the entertainment documentary industry. And I was at a couple of different networking events. And during this time, I realized I really loved virtual reality storytelling. And I just got myself really familiar with all the Los Angeles players in the field. And one of those people was Robert Hernandez, who's a professor at USC in the School of Journalism, who was teaching his students about virtual reality. And so I remember seeing him at one of these networking events and telling him about my work and telling him about who I was. And he said, I'd love to see what you're doing. I'd love to see what you're up to. And so I sent him my stuff. And he responded quite quickly and said, this is really good. I think there's some people who'd be interested in hiring you. Can I send your work out to some of my colleagues? And so he put my work out on a Google group that they were a part of. It was the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and many other journalism associations who were playing with virtual reality back in 2016. And a few days later, I got an email from Time Magazine, and they were interested in hiring me to help them work on their Life VR initiative.
Oh, that's awesome. Like, who knows how networking can take you, especially when UC Irvine. That's a really good college. Like, as a senior in high school, I'm actually going to be majoring in journalism as well. So, as you know, looking for colleges and applying can be very difficult, especially as a journalism major. It's a very competitive industry and everything.
Mhm.
And, as a UC Irvine, it's a really good journalism school, if many people didn't know. So, with UC Irvine, there's so many good professors and things to provide is really good. But like, how did you choose UC Irvine as a journalism major? Like, Was that your top choice, or did you kind of have other colleges in mind?
So actually, I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to pursue my dance career full time and sign with an agent and move to Los Angeles. And my parents were very much against that. So it was up to me to find a school that I felt I could be a part of while still pursuing my dance career. So that really helped me narrow it down to Southern California. And I applied to many different colleges. I initially applied to CSU Long Beach, UC Irvine, UCLA. And really, the top two that came out for me were CSU Long Beach and UC Irvine. And with Long Beach, I would have been a business administrative major of some sorts. And then with UC Irvine, I was offered a spot in the literary journalism program. And I really enjoyed being in newspaper in my high school and junior high school days and realized, a lot of the work and passion I have for dance and performance and choreography is really tied to storytelling. And so while I was having to put my dance career on hold or on pause for a quick moment, I could still pursue the storytelling passion I had through UC Irvine and through the literary journalism major versus going into more of a business administrative route at CSU Long Beach.
And you can use that for different jobs while also being a dancer. That is still considered maybe like a entertainment field if you are looking to do something alongside maybe being a dancer. That's a really good one. Like I know with every college, a journalism major is still different. Maybe it's like a multimedia major or like a telecommunications major or a media major. Every college has different like kind of set of degrees, for example. So I know a lot of people really just apply for one major at one college. Maybe it's like a journalism major, then next, it's like maybe like a business major. So it's like every person depends on what they want to go for. But like if you didn't go to college and really pursue, do you think you'll still be pursuing dance if you wouldn't end up going to college and pursuing dance full time? Or like where do you think you'll be?
Yeah, I really don't know what it could have been. It could have been an alternate universe. If I had pursued my dance career full time, who knows? Maybe I would be doing dance and modeling and acting and be performing. Maybe I would have pursued singing and pursued a career out here in musical theater. That's all to say, all of those things are still very much on the table for me. I still actively dance. I still actively am a part of the dance community here in New York City. I'm just not focusing on it as much full time. And so, who knows what would have happened if I had decided to just be a dancer performer and not pursued my college degree. I can't tell you which one was better or worse because I don't know what would have happened. But I do think, there was a lot of value in me making sure that dance wasn't the one and only thing I had. And I think that happens for a lot of people, right? They come out of high school and they have this huge passion and desire for one thing. And while they maybe keep that thing in their life and that thing can help them pay their bills or that thing is something they continue to pursue, we are multidimensional humans and we also change and grow. The person I was at 18 graduating from high school is very different than the woman I am today at 30 years old. So I really think it's important to recognize that you are not a stagnant human. Even if you say you want to pursue one thing like a professional dance career, you're allowed to change your mind and grow and expand who you are, even if dance or some other artistic endeavor still remains in your life in some way, shape, or form. And that doesn't mean having to go back to school. That doesn't mean having to suddenly go and get a degree. It just means you can be a diverse person and have many different interests and make money in many different ways.
Absolutely. In being a professional dancer doesn't really need a college degree, you know what I mean? Of course, there's some great colleges like AMAD in New York City and Los Angeles that is a really good program for maybe people that want to go into like musical theater or dancing or whatever it is that you want to go into. And like even if you have like a full-time job, you can always do dance or something as a side job whenever you get the chance. And of course, being in New York City, in case you ever like change your mind or want to do something on the side when you're not working, New York City is honestly one of the best places for it, if not the best. And to go back to your career as a director, like what inspired you to become a director and how did you kind of get started in the industry? I know you dived into this a little bit before, but can you kind of give us a little more in depth on why you became a director?
Sure. My journey to becoming a director is not straightforward. I didn't walk into the film, entertainment, storytelling industry saying I wanted to be a director. I think deep down, I always knew I wanted to be at the head of the storytelling. But really, I started in journalism. So there's no directors really in journalism. And so, I really pursued this idea of being a producer, and I pursued this idea of being the kind of person that does whatever is necessary to help get the project finished. I really approached this idea from, why don't I try and make sure that I give the best work possible and see what happens? So sometimes I have been the marketing manager, sometimes I have been the co-creator, sometimes I've been the producer. And just recently, I've fallen back in love with narrative storytelling. I started creating this VR animation series with my co-creator, Julie Cavalier. We created the Reimagine series, which is retelling fairy tales and folk tales from all over the world. And in this, we decided to really focus on female directors, female creators, and female writers. And so I got to really step into the role of being a female showrunner, but also a female director, and creating my own episode. And this is really where I found a huge passion. Like, I love working with a team of people. I love leading a team of people. I love making sure people feel heard. I love the collaboration that comes from being a director. I think being a director is one of the most humbling things you can be. It is really about seeing the amazing talent of your team and adding just direction to that talent and adding vision to that talent. And so, I think for me, some people wake up and say, I'm going to be a director. And for me, it was something that I gently and gracefully discovered over my course of working the last few years of my career.
Yeah, I'm honestly the type of person that loves to do directing or do our own thing as well. Like it's like I feel like it's like really just laid back a little bit than compared to maybe some other jobs. But to go back to the women's series I mentioned, is it about women or what is it about? 'Cause I'm curious now.
Yeah, the Reimagine series is about these female characters. It's not supposed to only be about female characters, but it just happens to be that a lot of our female directors wanted to tell stories that centered on female characters.
Mhm.
And so each director takes a different fairy tale, folk tale, or mythology from around the world, and they reimagine it both for virtual reality and also for this modern day contemporary world we're inside of. So, for example, Volume One, Nisa, directed by Julie Cavalier, is about a small young witch who's learning fear. And it's a retelling of the Brothers Grimm fairy tale, A Boy Who Went Forth to Learn Fear. Volume Two, Mahal, which is the volume that I directed, is a retelling of Tagalog mythology, and it follows a group of siblings, three girls and a boy, and they are recovering from the grief of losing their father, the Almighty Creator. And then Volume Three, which is directed by Melissa Joyner, is a retelling of a Southern Nigerian folktale. And in that, there's a young girl named Young Thing that is being cast out by her community. And in order to hide herself, she has to turn herself into a spider so that the community doesn't know who she really is. So these are all the different stories and ideas that we wrestle with in the Reimagined series, where we're not just thinking about stories that will be really engaging for a family audience, but also thinking about stories that have these really deep, almost adult like themes to them, where people, even if you're, a little bit older, and maybe you don't really watch Disney films anymore, you don't watch a lot of
Mhm.
animated films anymore, you could watch these films and still feel some sort of connection to them.
That sounds so interesting. Like, is it out yet or is it like post-production or anything?
That's a great question. The VR animation series Reimagined, all three episodes are now out on the MetaQuest store. So you can go onto a MetaQuest headset and watch them in virtual reality for free.
Awesome. I have to check it out now. It seems so good. Like to have like a TV show, virtual reality, or even a movie about women because there's literally like I'm represent a woman in the media in all ways, like directors, characters in many ways. Like because with women, there's more male characters than women characters in television. Of course, there every year it's getting better and better, especially in children's media. Like, was that something you guys kinda had in mind when creating that? Or what was kind of like your mindset into kind of having like a woman kind of representation in that?
Yeah, I think our mindset, we wanted to bring a totally different type of storytelling to virtual reality. There hasn't been a lot of productions and projects made that are really centered and focused on this family, ageless experience environment. But I think for me, Julie and I also recognize that very similarly to virtual reality, the film and video game industry are these really enriching storytelling spaces where there's not as much diversity. And now there are these moments where both the film and the video game industry are going back to move forward. They're going back to say, oh, no, we should include more diverse voices in the spaces. We should try and bring in different types of voices from around the world. And so
Mhm.
for Julie and I, instead of asking for virtual reality to wait 10 years and then go back and include voices, we said, well, why don't we ask virtual reality as an industry to include those diverse and inclusive voices now? Like, why don't we not wait for our turn, but actually ask for it to be our turn? And I think that's what's really beautiful about some of these newer industries that have emerging technology is you can make the first evers. You can set the precedent without having to fight tooth and nail for what might be considered, something really diverse and really forward thinking in the film industry.
I know, because oftentimes when people start doing things like yourself, they oftentimes wait for people to do it before them before actually doing the project. And but sometimes like something like your like the film or videos or like a little documentary series that kind of similar to what you did, it's not really like not a lot of people see stuff like that. So sometimes when people see it, they're like, well, there's not a lot of stuff like this. Like, why would I want to be the first one? Just because it's like they never see people like that doing what they're doing. And to have that mindset and to have that sort of something to watch for people and to release that and to have some sort of representation, it can help a lot of people be like, oh, these people made this project. Why not do the same thing? It really provides a pathway for people that want to do the same thing. But oftentimes when people don't see those type of projects, it always holds them back most of the time.
Yeah, I
And
think that's really great insight.
it really is. And to go into the entertainment industry, as you know, it can be very competitive and it can be just a very tough industry in general. But what practices or strategies do you employ to prioritize your self-care and maintain a healthy work-life balance? Because I know it can be very difficult personally. It's very hard for me. But what is it like for you?
Yeah, I think self-care is a really important part of just being. I don't think it needs to be tied to your career. Like, I think the best thing you can do for yourself is to take care of yourself because when you start taking care of yourself, everything else around you can drastically improve. For example, your personal relationships, your living situation, your ability to see yourself in a bigger, better space or a bigger, better light. And then, of course, it also affects your career. So for me, I think the way I think about self care is I don't necessarily think of it as its own standalone category. I try and infuse self care throughout my life. So, a couple things I do I try to have a consistent journaling practice. I try
Mhm.
to have a consistent dance practice where I'm constantly moving my body a few times a week, or I'm running, or I'm doing a workout class. I'm also currently working on defeating my inner critic. It's so easy to let our inner critic take hold of our mind and make us afraid of doing things. But in actuality, the inner critic is a big enemy of how we are able to take a chance on ourselves, how we're able to be fulfilled, how we're able to be creative. So, constantly when I'm thinking about something new and scary that is coming in my career or an opportunity I have that is scaring me, I really try and take a step back and ask myself, this is my inner critic talking, and I can choose to ignore this inner critic and move forward, or I can choose to allow this inner critic to make me feel frozen and scared. And sometimes the inner critic wins, and sometimes I win, I beat the inner critic, but at the end of the day, it's just a constant battle with that inner critic.
I
Other forms of self
the
care.
exact same thing. Like as someone who's busy, like sometimes you forget that you have a life and it's okay to relax and step back and prioritize yourself. Because as a senior in high school, as you can imagine and went through, it's really a busy year. It's like to have that self-care and being busy and having time for maybe a job or time for yourself or hang out with friends and work or whatever you have going on. It can be like this very hard. And basically, sometimes we all forget that we need to relax and lay back. And that's something that I honestly forget all the time. And I know a lot of people hate when they lay back. Sometimes they're like, well, if I don't work, then I'm not gonna get anything done. Well, that's kind of true, but it's like it's okay to take a step back and relax and take time for yourself. Because if you don't, then like you're just gonna become overworked. And I really oftentimes push myself to the extent to being like sleep deprived or exhausted. And it's not fun. So it's like to have that self-care like yourself that you do like running workout classes, like that's something that people should prioritize maybe if, like a job and really just taking care of yourself because that's the most important thing than a job.
Absolutely. And sleep is so important. And, if you have a home, making sure your home is well taken care of is a big part of self-care. Sometimes I wonder why I'm not feeling well. And then I realize my home is messy or my laundry's not done. And just even doing those little things really help. Another part of it too, if you have an animal like a pet, like really, leaning on that pet sometimes because it's really great to be able to cuddle something or hang out with something that's not just a human. And then, of course, there's your friends. But I think self care is really different for each person. And it's really about finding what works for you. And what works for you now might not work for you in 5 years. And that's okay. Because again, you're growing and expanding who you are as a human.
So true. So the last thing I have to ask you is like what's next for you and your career? Like do you have anything coming out or in the works at the moment?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I just actually curated a museum exhibition at the Museum of the Moving Image here in Queens, New York. So it'll be open until the end of January. So if anyone is in town here in New York City, the exhibit is called Recording the Ride, The Rise of Street Style Skate Videos. And it really highlights the skate film era from the late 80s through the early 90s. And I'm currently in development on a couple of projects, both film, dance, theater, working to see, where the next new big thing might come from. So I'm excited to see where all those conversations continue to unfold. But I'm also starting to really work on my own LLC and business. So you can now book a consulting session with me on my website. You can book a 30-minute or a 1 hour long consulting session. I'm currently working on a couple of courses like Intro to XR, social impact campaigns for virtual reality, and I'm starting to work on different webinars. So you can stay in touch with me through my newsletter and stay up to date with some of these educational classes that I am working on and excited to put forward in the next few months.
Awesome. I can't wait for that. It seems so interesting. What let me know once it is all out. I'll be happy to have you back on again if you ever want to talk about it or anything. You're always welcome to come on. But thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into this episode. I know it's been a hot minute since we released an episode, but I'm so excited to be back and posting again. I really appreciate you so much for coming on. I can't even explain how much I love what you're doing. It's definitely making a difference. And I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time to chat with us with your amazing work. It means so much.
Of course, and I just want to take a moment and say you're such a badass. Like, great job creating your own podcast and making this work that you are passionate about, no matter, what you have going on in your schedule. I just think that's so amazing. And I think it's so exciting to see what you'll be doing in the next few years. And I would be happy and very honored to be able to stay in touch because I think you're going to do amazing things.
Thank you so much. That means so much. And it's literally, I was going to say the exact same thing to you. So I definitely love to stay in touch with you. And if you ever need any help with anything, I'd be happy to help. And if you ever want to do a collaboration, I'd be happy to help with you with that anyway. We're always looking for collaboration. So if you or anyone that's listening wants to do collaboration with us, just let me know. We're always looking for people to talk to or collab with in general. But thank you everyone for listening. I'll make sure I like, subscribe, review, and we'll see you guys next week. And